Hello, welcome to Hazard Recognition. This will be new to almost all of you. I've done this a couple times with the line crew and gotten some pretty good feedback. I mean, it is what it is. With what's going on in our social isolation and our at-home stuff, we have to modify the way we do things. And so, as part of my stay-at-home duties, we're keeping up with training. And this is 2020 hazard recognition for the inside folks at White River Electric. So my video only records for 20 minutes at a time, so this will be 2 videos, but hopefully you'll be able to see the pictures decently and be able to get something out of this. So hazard recognition. Some people do not recognize the hazard even though it's completely surrounded by them. Whether it's just they've done it this way forever and nothing's happened, or this is the way we've always done it, or just sheer negligence. Some people do not recognize the hazard that's around them. Those are just gag pictures, but they want to illustrate hazard recognition. That we recognize the hazard, but the person involved in the hazard does not recognize the hazard. With special remembrance of Enrique Saviano, I took this picture one day. I said, Enrique, you can't... And he didn't know. He didn't have a side. I said he didn't know that was illegal. And so I gave him a pass on it, and I told him, hey, I'm going to use this picture for future videos and things of that nature. And he said, go ahead. So there's Enrique standing on top of the ladder. It definitely says don't stand on top of the ladder, but Enrique didn't read it, and that's the way they do it, and so he did it. So he was educated on that, and we got him a taller ladder so he didn't have to stand on the top rung. But there's a classic example, no bad to Enrique, that some people, he did not recognize the hazard that he was in while he was in the hazard. And with, respect to him, he's got 3 points of contact, right? But, you don't stand on the top rung. The court system has established that electric utilities must use the highest degree of care to provide protection against unreasonable risks to employees and the general public. So that's what the court system said. The NESC has said that electric utilities have a duty and an obligation to protect employees and the general public from unreasonable risks. So they have placed electric utility workers as experts in their field. So we're training inside folks on how to recognize hazards they may see on the power lines. The line crew would probably directly recognize these as hazards, but this enables you to go ahead and recognize hazards should you see them on the White River system. We also educate members. We do this, we go to elementary schools, we do talks, career talks, we do tabletop high voltage, we do high voltage with our trailer. We really try to outreach to the kids on electrical safety and what to do should they see a power line, whatever. We try to outreach the County Road and Bridge, Rio Blanco Police, Rio Blanco County Sheriff. We were actually, in fact, supposed to do a couple high voltage demonstrations with both these entities coming up here next month and one the end of last month. First responders, EMS, firefighters, VFD, also outreach to the volunteer fire department and have an electrical safety class when they do their safety training once a month over in the shop. That's all on hold until the future. That can't come soon enough. Community groups. Annual meeting, we did a high voltage demo for the annual meeting, we do the tabletop at the annual meeting, getting the word out. Everybody likes to see the little troll doll with the hair on fire, but we're trying to get a message out with that. Also, we've outreached the Bureau of Land Management in the past to do a high voltage demonstration. Basically, we'll try to educate anyone on electrical safety because it benefits us all. We also try to do through bill stoppers. We do newspaper ads, radio ads. And lastly, Colorado Country Life is valuable. It goes to all rural electric utility members, and it has the co-op page where Alan specifically talks about safety or renewables or whatever the topic of the month is. And they're really good source of information. And if you go to the website, you can read all the different co-ops pages. We see White Rivers, but every co-op CEO, general manager writes a co-op page, and they're pretty informative actually. If you're bored during your sequestration at home. So how do we protect the general public and our linemen? And how do we exercise the highest degree of care? We do this through a hazard recognition program. The purpose of a hazard recognition program is to identify hazards, repair hazards, and document any potential hazards. Normally, these hazard report forms, if you see something or you're calling it in or whatever the communication procedure is, goes to Perky, and we do it a little differently. He writes it in a book on a hazard report form. This is an example of a triplicate hazard report form where, location, date, what the priority is, and we'll go through priorities in a minute, who reported it, and then this sets up a paper trail of reporting, of fixing it, and then you show due diligence that you're recognizing hazards and you're fixing hazards. So this really holds up in a court of law as proof that the utility is recognizing and documenting hazards. It can go a long way. Priority 1 example, hazards are immediately dangerous to the public and employees. You got to repair it immediately or within 24 hours. You may have to guard it. You may have to guard it with a qualified employee. You may have to isolate it with cover-up materials. You may have to put barriers up, limiting access to the area. And ultimately, maybe you need to de-energize. Something that's enticing. That picture, a cow knocked that junction box over there in the PNs. And, there wasn't a lot of little kids to come and roam around. But, if that happened in a residential community somewhere, that would just be a magnet for kids to play in. So again, we're all in it together. We need to recognize these things. Priority 2 doesn't present an immediate danger or immediate hazardous condition. You want to monitor that situation so it doesn't deteriorate into a priority 1. And you want to repair that within 2 to 4 weeks. Your priority 3s doesn't present an immediate hazardous condition. It may require a rebuild. You may repair or replacement, correct 4 to 6 weeks. So it's not going to kill anybody, but you need to get on it. Why is this documentation important? It's important because it provides a means of tracking maintenance problems, provides a means of proof that hazards are being identified, provides proof that hazards are being corrected, provides proof that it has a recognition program in case of litigation. So also, we solicit hazard reports from board members, we solicit hazard reports from members, and we solicit hazard reports from employees, and we look at those every year in the safety committee meeting, and we select one of the better ones and we award it. We recognize the importance of having our members, our employees, and our directors report hazards that we may have missed on a line patrol or something. And this isn't to make our line crew look bad or anything. This is just part of empowering our employees to recognize hazards that are occurring out there on our system. This is one from the PANTS, and I tried to use a lot of our pictures. So what do we have here? We got a pole in the power line. The pole's in a 3-phase power line, laying on the power line. And so what a lot of people instinctually want to do is help the co-op out. And so they want to go up and push that pole off that line or cut it out of that line. Well, that tree could be energized under certain conditions. Wooden poles, non-conductors can be energized if the wood has the right moisture conditions, the right conditions. So the guy goes up to deal with that tree, and he has 2 things that are going against him potentially: step potential and touch potential. A step potential is that tree is a conductor. It's electricity is going to ground through that tree. It's dissipating from the base of that tree out like ripples on a pond, and you're walking into it, and your 1 foot is on one potential, another foot's on another potential, and boom, you're least resistant than the ground, and you are the circuit. Or touch potential. The person it's energized, it's going to ground. Somebody goes up and touches that tree and gets electrocuted. Touch and step potential from helping out the co-op or whatever. So I think Craig and somebody went up here to take care of this, and they knew what to do. They knew how to protect themselves. And again, you see that wet patches, dry patch through the snow. That's that hot oil that they're getting out of Wilson Creek, and they're taking over the top, and it melts out a spot in the snow all year round. And again, Todd and I found this in the Peants Online Patrol or something, and Cal had knocked it over, and we got on it, fixed it, But we need to identify these things. If this wasn't rural, if this was in downtown Denver or someplace, serious situation. Here we see, and hopefully you can see these pictures all right, and my pointer doesn't work effectively on this. We see a guy wire. Hopefully you can see that yellow, and that guy's right off the roadway. It's, a foot off the roadway. So a kid riding in the street, sees a car coming, gets in the, gets off the roadway, boom, makes contact with that guy wire. A car coming down the road, gets off the road a little bit, boom, they're contacting that guy wire. They may be climbing that power line. So we got to pay attention to where we place our down guys. That would be something that we would want to make note of. I heard this one didn't even blink, they said. They went out after a prairie fire. I heard this was on the east side of Colorado, and they were doing line patrol, and they found this, and they said it didn't even blink. It just, the whole pole just basically vaporized except for that top. So, again, blatantly obvious. If you see something like that, you're going to. This was taken by Ron Spencer, and he immediately went and made contact with them and discussed it. And so not only does it affect the integrity of our poles because they're digging around them and making a swamp around them and tipping, possible falling over hazard, is the contact with the excavator into the power line. So we definitely have to make contact. We have to deal with situations that arise like that, and that empowers anybody and everybody, the crew and service planners, and everybody's in it together. We got to know about this, and in a situation like this, a call to Frank would be an appropriate thing, or even a picture does 1,000 words. Here are some stock photos from Federated. This is originally a Federated presentation a million years ago. This is blatantly obvious. A gate to a substation's open. That'll allow a little kid in there, or anybody, a thief, in there. Need gates on substations. Fence on substations. And then if this guy stands up, that fence has to be only like 4 or 5 feet tall. So that fence isn't even up to spec. They want you to store materials away from the fence so it doesn't allow easy access in and out of the substation, as if you could jump on top of that clamshell, that junction box, and then you could easy access over the fence and on top of that reel. So they want you to store materials at least 4 feet away from fences to not allow that easy access in or out. We got to watch out for environmental problems. We got a leak here from a transformer in a substation, and it's a small leak, relatively speaking. But this could turn into a big leak, and if a newspaper gets a hold of it, and it just creates a bigger problem. We need to deal with these things before it becomes this, and before we have to actually dig up soil. And digging up soil and remediating oil-contaminated soil isn't that big of a deal. If you just have the soil out, the oil-contaminated soil, and you stir it up, move it about, air it out, within a few weeks after you test it, you can take it right to the landfill. It's landfillable. So, unless it's PCB containing, and then that's a whole different ball game, and we're in it with the feds and the EPA and everything else. But fortunately, we're a PCB utility, PCB-free utility, so we don't have any PCB containing transformers to leak oil. I believe we probably have still some bushings that probably have some PCB oil in them up in the top of the bushing. And I believe maybe we have some CTs or PTs that have those in there. Rick would be able to tell us. But, you know, we want to eliminate any environmental exposure to the cooperative. We also don't want to be this guy where, you know, it's probably just mineral oil spilled. But, you know, that's a remediation thing. Just the very public view of it, and there's oil on the ground, and, you know, the media or anybody would just say that's that dangerous, evil PCB oil, and the burden of proof's on us, you know, so we definitely want to do the right thing in situations like that. And there's a road right there, full public view. Nesting in substations is another one, and Dusty's really good about, you know, looking for and taking care of nests and subs of any birds, of any animal. Dustin's on that. You know, here's a picture of a substation, and this is down in Georgia, and you can see watermelons growing in this substation, and from what they said is, I was watching this or showing it somewhere, and somebody said, oh yeah, that was my co-op down in Georgia, and we used to go do, the substation tech ate a lot of watermelons, so he'd spit the seeds out the window, and the whole co-op would go there because they were the best watermelons in the county, the guy said. But we don't want vegetation in our substations. Maybe in Georgia it stays green all the time. It's never going to burn. You can grow crops in substations. But in our arid climate, if we had weeds and stuff growing like that in spring, by midsummer they'd be dry and a fire hazard. The last thing we want to do or see is a fire in a substation. So all our substations are looking good, gravelled up. Here's just a classic example where they could get you for a transformer if this was involved in a fatality. The whole transformer thing should be pad mount transformer serving an underground, utility to a houses. And we see this pad mount is marked with both a warning on the right and a danger on the left. And this is a complete misuse of the stickers. What it's supposed to be, warning on the outside, danger on the inside, because they actually mean something. Warning means, hey, you're about to get into it. You're about, you could die if you're not careful, right? That's what warning means. Danger means, hey, you're about to die if you do one, you're in death's door right now. Make one mistake, do one thing, you're dead. That's what that means. So warning outside, danger inside. Same thing with substations. Warning outside, danger inside. It's a little thing, but it's a thing that lawyers glom onto. And it's a thing that we need to be aware of to keep ourselves from getting in a trap like that. Would it happen to Meeker? I don't know. Property rights, I'm sure he just wanted to, have his fence on his property so he could have his dog, but we can't be having this. And, when I worked for San Miguel Power and we'd be in Telluride, there were always people putting their transformers into enclosures, and so you always had to go tell them, and it was like a really bad day for them. Shooting up junction boxes, sure, people do it. Got to be on the lookout. If you see any bullet holes and utility poles or anything like that, please report. Here's something, not intuitive right off the bat, but we see this is an overhead going to an underground junction box, and you see the underground just feeding directly down into the ground. It isn't, and you see the covers that are laying on the ground behind it and in front of it. So again, this is something that could be enticing to a kid to try to climb and mess with, whatever. But and that doesn't provide any electrical guarding protection. It's just there for extra visibility to prevent somebody from wanting to do it. That would have been an outage. That would have been a member calling saying, hey, I don't have any electricity. Unless the transformer was smoking before it completely blew up and somebody got it and took a picture of it. Got to watch placement of transformers and underground utilities in regards to like propane tanks. But what was here first? Goes back to the beginning. Chicken or the egg? Who was here first? Was the transformer here first, or was the yard bomb here first? And I would say probably the transformer was here first. But who knows? Anyway, this stops our first video, and our second video is coming up, and we should be able to wrap it up. Thank you very much.